Do you ever feel that the files that you put into SharePoint just, well, disappear? Like you're spending forever navigating a maze of folders and subfolders just to come up empty-handed and disappointed you heard SharePoint was this amazing document management system, but so far you're not seeing it. If so, you're not alone. People can spend up to 30% of their working week just hunting for files, right? It's a massive productivity killer if you care about that type of thing. And if you don't, well, it's just a pain in the arse. So hi, I'm Dan and I help organizations get on top of all things SharePoint, and very top of that list is document management. So in this video, I'm going to show you my top 5 features when it comes to document management, features that many people don't even know exist. And like all my videos, we're going to do it by building an example solution. So to keep it, as broadly accessible as I can, we're going to use a common scenario, which is project management. So as we go through the features, each one will build on the last, and by the end, we'll have a fully fledged document management system that can really highlight the power that SharePoint has to help you structure and store your files and documents. So the features we're going to be covering are content types. We're going to cover document sets. We're going to cover an appropriate use of folders. We'll talk about cascading metadata. And then we'll wrap it up with how to create a personalized targeted view to get people to the files that matter to them the most. All of these features are out of the box, okay? And we're going to implement them at the site level. So that means you don't have to be an admin or have any superpowers. You can put this into practice today on your site. Play around with it and get familiar with the capability. And if you stick with me and follow the video to the end, you will be a master in SharePoint document management and head and shoulders above anybody else in your organization, I guarantee it. So with all that being said, let's get into it. This video was sponsored by me and Academy 365, which is a site where I have a number of courses that will take you from zero to absolute SharePoint hero. These courses are structured to guide you step by step on how to deliver the most common internet requirements I see day in and day out. Whether you're building a new internet site or indeed need to uplift and revitalize an existing site, these courses are for you. And the best thing is you don't have to be a techie to take them, right? These courses have been carefully designed so they're accessible to anybody with any level of experience within SharePoint. We have the SharePoint Site Builder Masterclass version 2, which is an updated version of my original flagship course. This course guides you on how to create a typical internet department site step by step, jam-packed with the most common requirements I see from real-world experience. We also have the SharePoint Training and Education Platform Site course, which will show you how to create amazing educational experiences within SharePoint. Both courses are laser focused on end user experience, so you'll be able to wow your users, your colleagues, and even your bosses. If you're interested, there's a link below along with a tasty discount. Now back to the video. So the first feature we're going to look at is content types. Now content types as a feature is something I used to scare the bejesus out of me because I just never understood it. You're not going to have that problem because I'm going to explain it to you. So basically a content type is a definition of a type of content based on metadata. Now, if you're not overly familiar with metadata, let me quickly explain that one. So if we look over here on a SharePoint site, if I come over to documents, which is the document library, we come in here, we see we have a beautiful document in here, and these columns in here represent metadata. So metadata is just information about the file. Now in any SharePoint list or document library, I can choose to put in any kind of metadata I want. So I could come in here and I could add in a type of metadata, which is a person. So I'd say next, and then I would just say, this is going to represent the document owner. And what that will allow me to do is whenever I put a document in here, I can then assign it an owner. So it's a piece of information about the document. Another type of metadata might be if I wanted to put in a date, and that might be the due date of the document. So I can pop that in there like that, click save, and now I have the ability to capture a due date for any document I put into this library. So there's lots of different types of metadata: a person, a date, a list of choices, or just free text. So lots of options for us to describe our document. So then if I have a document and I want to edit the details of it, I can click details here, and I can come down here and I can say, well, the owner of the document is Dan, which is great. And I could say the due date of this document is tomorrow. So that gets saved against the document. And that means SharePoint knows much more about the document, and we can filter and sort and do all sorts of great things with the metadata. So that's metadata. Now you might add metadata to your document libraries, which is a fantastic start. That's brilliant. One limitation with adding it this way is that any metadata we add into this document library will apply universally to every file we put in this library. And that's where content types come in, because what a content type allows us to do is store lots of different types of content in here each with its own metadata structure. So I might have this document in here, and it could have a document type of report. And that due date would be very applicable to a report. But if I wanted to store maybe meeting minutes in here, due date may not be as relevant to the minutes. We might want another metadata column, which is a date type, which is date of meeting, which case we could capture the date of a meeting. So we could have different sets of metadata dependent on the types of content we put in there, hence the name content type. But it's always best to learn by doing, so let me show you. So in this example, this whole scenario we're building is all about project management. So we're going to create a content type called project document, and we're going to structure it so it just has the metadata we want whenever we upload a project document to this library. So what we want to do is we want to come up here into the cog, and we want to go to site information, and from there we'll go to view all site settings. And once we come to this beautiful screen, we'll go into site content types. Now it's worth saying in this demonstration I'm adding them at the site level, so you can reuse them anywhere within this site across multiple document libraries. You can always, of course, create these at the tenant level, so in the SharePoint admin center, and your content types would be available on every site that you have in your tenant. Well, let's keep things simple and let's just kind of get into it, right? So I want to create a new content type, so I'm going to say create a content type. I'll give it a name. So ours is going to be a project document. You can put in a description if you want. And then we get to choose a category. Now your site comes with loads of out of the box pre-built content types. So you can choose one of the categories that exist. There's loads down in here. Or you can choose to create your own one if you want to keep them organized that way. I'm just going to use the custom content types category. This really doesn't make a difference one way or the other, okay? So don't get hung up on it. So we'll use that. So for the parent content type, every content type you create is going to be based on one of the foundational content types within SharePoint. So if we drop this down, we know we're dealing with documents. So our parent is going to be a document content type. So we'll select that. And then we say the content type is going to be a document, okay? So we have that in there like that, and we say create. So we've effectively created the content type now, but what makes one content type distinct from another is the metadata we put in it or we assign to it. So that's where we come in here, or we can add site columns. So we'll drop this down, and I'm going to say create a new site column. And now I just define, well, if I had a document that was a project document, how do I want to define it and how do I want to describe it? So one column we might have in here would be assigned to. And what we'll do is we'll keep it all together with no spaces. It'll make things easier down the road, but we can make it look prettier when we're in the site. So assigned to, okay, that's the name. Again, put in a description if you want. I'm going to use the existing custom columns, okay, category. That's fine for me. And now we select the type. So if you're going to capture an assigned to, what type of metadata is that? Well, it's not multiple lines of text. It's not number. It's not a yes, no, but person or a group is what we're looking for. So we put that in there. We can allow the selection of groups if we wanted to, but I'm not going to. I want this to be assigned to an individual. And we can choose to show profile photos, although when you tick this and you add it into your document library, which we'll do, it ignores this, but we'll tick it anyway. Maybe it'll work today. So then we just click save. And now we have the assigned to metadata associated with this content type. So you just flesh this out to capture the key information you want when a document is designated a project document. Now, another piece of metadata I might want to capture related to these documents is the document status. So I can come in here and I can say create a new site column, and I can call this doc status. We'll leave all this as is, and now I want to create a choice because I want people to choose from a preset option. So for my choices, I will have draft. So the document could be draft, the document could be published, and the document could be issued. So we can pop them in there like that, and we can set a default value. I'll set draft as the default value because why not? And then we'll click save. So effectively, we're just building out the metadata structure for this type. I hope it's clear enough. So I'm going to repeat that and build out this content type, and then I'll show you what I came up with. So far I've got in here, I have the name, I have the title, I have assigned to, the document status, the document due date, and the document phase, which in a project scenario for me is going to be planning, delivery, and closure. So I also want the ability to say, well, I know it's a project document, but what specific type of project document is it? And in this scenario, we're going to have different types of documents depending on phase. Now, when we get to the cascading metadata piece, this will all tie in nicely together, but just now we're going to create a metadata field for planning document types, the delivery document types, and the closure document types. So just to give you an idea, again, create a new site column. This is going to be called doc type dash planning. It's going to be a choice, and the choices we want are, let's say, requirements, budget, and a plan. We'll say save. And then I'll do the same for delivery and closure. Okay, so now I've added all the columns I want to this content type. So all very straightforward so far. So effectively, we're kind of done here. We've created the content type, believe it or not. So we've created it at the site level. Now we need to add it to the location where we actually want to use it. So we'll come back to the site, and I'm going to come up to site contents because I want to create a new document library for our project. So I'm going to say new document library, and we'll call it something exciting like Project Hub, and I'll say create. So now we're in a brand new fresh library. If we go to add a column, we scroll right to the bottom and we say add a content type and say next. Now we can choose from the content types available to us. So if we drop this down, we should see we have project document in here, which is the one we just created. So we'll click apply, and now we have it in here. And it's a bit anticlimactical, right? We're not really seeing it here, but it is here, trust me. So if we were to click new, right, now we've got some options in here. We've got document and project document, okay? So that's the content type we added. And this is just a default content type that comes with every site. It's at the basic level. So now if I add a document in here, I can select the document, look at its details, and I'll see now that I have a content type field in here, which is by default set to document. But I can come in here and I can change it to project document. And when I do that, if I click edit all, we'll see here are all of those fields or the metadata that I've added to the content type in here. Whereas if I was to change this back to document, they go away because that's we've defined our content type. So I'll change it back here to project document, which is great. And now we can just enter in some dummy values in here. I'll pick a due date. Doc phase can be planning. Planning document type can be requirement. And we'll click save. So now we've saved that in there. And if we come up to where our views are up here, we got a project document view created for us. So if I click into there, then we see all our metadata in here. And you might just want to do some tidying up. So I might hide this title column, bring my assign to over, make sure my labels are visible like such, which is good, right? So now every time we add in a project document, it comes in here like this. If you want to keep things very structured and kind of manage those content types, what we can always do is we can come up to the cog, we can go to library settings, more library settings, and we see here we have our content types in here. So what we can do is, because we're not going to really use this default document content type, we can select it and now we can delete it. So we only have the project document type available. So I'll delete that, which goes away. And now our project document is the default content type. Now, the reason I'm deleting it out of here is you kind of want to make it as easy for people as you can to do what you want them to do. So don't give them the choice of document if you don't want them to use it. Just give them what you want them to use and they've no choice but to use it and keep things nice and clean. So far so good. Hopefully you're getting an idea of what content types are. If you wanted multiple different content types within here, you can always do that. Just follow the steps I did to create project document, create another one, and then you can add it to the site by saying add a column down to the bottom, add a content type, and then you add that in. When you have multiple in here, you'll always be able to come up here and choose which one you want. And if you want to reassign a document to a different content type, you can always select it, come to the details, and you have the content type option in here. If you want to display within this view, well, what content type is a specific document, you can always come up to the view here and you can say edit current view. And in here, this is all the list of metadata that we could show. We see one called content type. We'll select that and we'll say, okay. And now we can see the content type is project document. And we could always move that up to the front so we see it front and center. So simple as that, right? Content types, they're not the boogeyman. They're very, very handy. And now you know how to create them. So now let's talk about document sets, our second feature. Now, a document set, it's really a container, very similar to a folder, except we can add metadata to that container to help us describe the overall thing that we're putting files into. So in our case, it's projects, okay? So what a lot of people will tend to do is they'll come in here and they'll say, I'll create a folder and we'll call it project A, okay? I'll put it in here. And then I'm just going to store all my documents related to project A within here. But we can't really add the metadata to the folder in a very meaningful way. And that's what document sets are here for. They allow us to add metadata to essentially like a folder, but we get a couple of extra benefits with it. So looking at a demo site, you can see it in action. So these are document sets here, and they represent a project. And we can have high level information about that project in here. So we have a description of the project, who the client is, who the project manager is, the start date of the project, and the project status, okay? That's describing the project at the document set level. Then if we were to open up one of these document sets, you can then see the details of the metadata about our individual documents. So this is our project document content type in action, and the view will automatically change for us. It's really a great experience and far superior to folders that at the document set level. So the parent container, we can have a specific set of metadata that describes it as the overall thing. And then within that, we store our project document content type. We can then describe the documents. It just really helps keep things organized. Back here, I'll delete the folder. We definitely don't want to use that. To allow us to create a document set, we have to enable it on the site. Now, this is quite out of the way in terms of how to access it within the site. And that's why many people don't know it even exists as a thing you can do. But once you know it's there, it can be super useful. So let's enable the document set on the site. So we'll come up to the cog. We'll go to site information again and view all site settings. We're going to come down here to site collection features. We'll see an option here for document sets, and we have to activate it. Now that that's activated, we can now create the document sets. So creating a document set is actually just like creating a content type, because a document set is essentially a content type. So we can come back into our site settings, site content types. Now we can just create a new one. So we're going to call this one A365 project, because that's what it's going to represent, which is a project. You can leave it in custom content types, and the parent category will now have an option for document set content type. So we'll select that, and the content type is document set, which is great. And now we say create. And just like before, now we just add in the metadata that we want to use to describe a project. So for example, we can add a site column, create a new column, and we'll say project status. We'll leave it in custom columns, and I want this to be a choice. And the choices I want are going to be, it's in the green, and we might actually just do an L emoji in there to make it look all nice. And we better change it to green, really, I suppose. And then we can have in amber, and an emoji for that might be the eyes. So let's keep an eye on this. That's what we're kind of saying there. And I'll change that to more of an amber color. And then we'll have red, which is something we never want to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a fire emoji. Why not? And we can change the style of it to a red color. Perfect. And we can set a default value if we want. I'm going to always be positive and say green. So we'll say save. And now we have a way to capture the project status. So I'm going to add in another column, which is going to be project start date. I'll come in here, and that's going to be a date and time column. I'll say save, and then we will add in one more, which is going to be project manager, and that's going to be a person column. We'll add in one more, and this is going to be the client, so who the project is for. And I'll leave that as a single line of text. But if you had a list on your site that contained all of your clients or customers, you could always have a lookup to that. So all sorts of options available to you. So I'll say save. And now I think we're effectively good to go. You can always edit your content types after you've created them. So don't worry about that. If you forgot a piece of metadata, you can always go into the content type gallery, find your content type, and add or remove columns if you need to. That's no problem at all. So we've defined the metadata for our document set content type just now. There's a couple of other settings we have available to us. So if we come into document set settings, we can say, well, when someone creates one of these document sets, is there specific content types we want to allow them to put into it? So again, this is another way you can manage the documents and control how people interact with this structure that you're building. So I say this document, I'll remove that because we don't want that on our library. We've already deleted it. And now we can come in and we can find our project document. And I'm going to add that because that is a content type I want people to add into my document set. We have the option to add default content. So if you want to pre-populate this with document templates every time a new project is created, you can absolutely do that in here. And we'll actually come back and look at this when we get to the folder part of this video. Shared column. Well, this basically says, well, we've captured all of this information at the project or document set level, is there any of that information we want to automatically apply to the documents within? So in this case, I might always capture the client so we know what client a document relates to. So we set it at the document set level, and every file we put into that document set will automatically be tagged with the client, which is very useful. And the welcome page, well, that's relating back to older versions of SharePoint, so I don't really care about that, so we'll leave that. And then everything else is fine, so we'll say save. And now we have our document set fully configured and ready to use. So back in our document library, again, we're going to go to add a column. Right down to the bottom, we're going to add a content type and say next. And now we're going to add in our A365 project content type, which is the document set we just created. So we'll say apply, and we have that added in there, which is great. And if I say new, now I can create an A365 project. Now, before we do that, there's a couple of other settings we want to apply. So we're going to come up to the cog, we're going to go to library settings, more library settings, and down here we can see under content types we now have our A365 project. So we're going to click that, and we're going to go to document set settings, and this is basically a lot of the settings that we just set a few minutes ago. But when we come down into here, okay, we have something called the welcome page view, and basically what this actually means is when someone opens a document set, what view do we want to show? Okay, now we know that we have a project documents view, which shows all of the metadata about a document. So when we click on a document set, it's going to open up and automatically switch to whatever view we define here. So we're going to drop this down and we're going to say project document. And we'll say okay. And now if we come back to our settings and back into our project hub document library, we can create a new project. And when we do, we'll get a screen to fill in its metadata. So we can say our project is a document management project. We could give it a description, implementing a document solution so people can find stuff. We can say the project status is green, brilliant. We can see the project start date. We can click the little calendar here and we can say it's going to start tomorrow. Put in the project manager, well, it's going to be me. And the client is Academy 365 or whoever you want. So we've defined all the information for our document set or our project in this case, and we click save. And now we can see that we have our document management project here all ready to go. And it means if we click into it, so if you notice up here, the view is A365 project. That's the view which will show us all our projects. But if we click into the document set, it automatically changes to that project document view, okay? It's just a nice touch so people don't have to change the view manually. They can pop in here and see all their documents. So I'm just going to swap this to all documents for the moment. And I'm just going to drag this document inside our document management project. And so what we'll do is in our views here, we can see I've got the project view, which shows me all my projects. I've got the project document, which is shown when I enter into a project. So I don't really need all documents. So what I'll do is I'll get A365 project and I will set that as the default view. And then if I come back in here and I select all documents, I'll now have an option to delete it. If this is set as the default view, you won't see a delete option. So you got to make the other one default and then you can delete this. So now I'll just check up here and it's gone. So now we just have these two views here, which is exactly what we want. So hopefully you can see the potential of document sets as a way to, define a container with metadata, and it'll give you the ability then to control what goes into it, and you get the automatic view switching, which is very handy. Now, obviously this is a simple example. I've got one project here, but if you do a lot of projects in your business area or your organization, you can see that having all your projects listed in here with metadata means, you could filter on project status, you could filter on project start date, project manager, anything like that to narrow down what projects you're looking for. And then you can go into the projects and find the documents. So certainly one to consider. So now we'll move on to our third feature, which is all about folders. Now, folders get an awful bad rap in, SharePoint circles. People will kind of say it's folders versus metadata. Metadata is much more flexible and is the way to actually do it. But, in reality, I think the answer is it's a balancing act. The problem with folders is when you over rely on folders and you get these very deep structures where your content becomes obscured and hidden by this complex network of folders. So that you definitely want to avoid. But folders, like I said, they do have uses. Well, for one, people are used to folders. So If you have a very clear structure in terms of categorization, folders can be nice to use. Now, I wouldn't go, further than 1 or 2 levels of folders max. I would definitely be using my metadata where I can, but folders can help people really distinguish between different categories of information. As well as that, when it comes to security and permissions, you can't apply security based on metadata, whereas with a folder you can. So in this scenario, even, in certain projects, there might be certain budgetary information or maybe rate cards, that kind of a thing that you might want everybody with access to the project to have access to. So in that case, you might create a folder and restrict the permissions on it so that maybe only the PM can see it and things like that. So there's definitely a use for them. So what we can do is we can add folders into our document sets for any of these purposes. And the great thing about a document set is we can define a folder structure within the document set content type. And every time we create one of these document sets, we get that set of folders pre-made for us, which can help you keep things really structured. And then we can go a step further and prevent people from creating additional folders. So you don't have to worry about folders proliferating. You can say, well, this folder structure is, it's not a deep structure and it really makes sense for what we're trying to do. So let's include that, but no more. So what we'll do is we'll do just that. So if we come over to my demo example, we can see if I go into my document management project here, I've got these folders in here. So working documents, final deliverables, and reference materials. So they're very clear categories of content. Now it's just an example, right? You do what works best for you if you want to use folders at all. But every time I create a new project in here, these folders are automatically created for me, which is a nice touch. So let me show you how to do it. So we'll come back over to our working site, and what we need to do is we need to edit this document set content type. So we'll come up to the cog, site information, and view all site settings, because again, we want to get back to the content type gallery. So we'll say site content types, and in here we're just looking for that document set we created, which is our A365 project. So if I go into that, I can go to document set settings, and I can scroll down here to default content. So this is where if you want files to be created with your document set, or in our case folders, this is where you would define it. So to get a folder automatically created, we need a file that would be in that folder, because it's really, we're saying to the content type, create this file and put it in that folder, but it won't create the folder unless we have a file to put into it. So you might put in a template document or a dummy document or an information document, anything at all, really just to trigger the creation of the folder. So I'll come in here and I'll say the content type is a project document. So we could enter in a folder name. So my first folder is going to be 01 working documents. And then I just upload a file. So anything at all, I just have a dummy file there. So I'll say add, and I just repeat that process for every folder that I want. So then I have 02 final deliverables. And again, I'm just uploading any file here, really quick for the demo purposes. And then our last folder will be 03 reference materials. And we just click add. So now this will create these folders automatically when the document set gets created. So then I'll just click save, and that's saved there. And now we're ready to go. So now we can test it. We can come back into our document library. So we'll create a new project, and we'll be ambitious with this one. We'll say solving world hunger. And the description will be free Doritos for everyone. We'll say we're in the green. And we'll say the project starts on Monday. PM is going to be myself. And the client again is going to be Academy 365. And I'll say save. And now we have that project here. If we click into it, now we don't see the folders we created in here, right? Because this view has been filtered to only show the project document content type, but a folder is actually its own content type. So what we can do is we can delete this filter from here, and then we see our folders and we see the content type is folder. And over here we have the asterisk, so we'll say save view. So now that's saved, which means we see our folders. And then we can always click into our folder and we'll see that template document that we put in there. Now you can just delete these, or you can make them an actual meaningful document within here, which is not a bad idea, to be honest, to have templated documents to help people get going with the projects. Now, one thing about this, right, just to note, if you're using folders, we were in the project hub, we came into the project, and that swapped the view to project document, and then we came into a folder. Now, if I go straight back to project hub, our view doesn't automatically change back. We'd need to change it back ourselves to something like this. I don't know why this is, it just seems to be a bit of a bug in here. But if I went into solving world hunger and didn't go any further and came back to project hub, the view changes back. And similarly, if I go into solving world hunger, I go into working documents, I come back to solving world hunger, so I'm at the the kind of first level within here, and then I come back to Project Hub, again, it flicks back, okay? So it's just if you go straight from within the folder back to the top level, it doesn't automatically change that view. It's not ideal, but just know to expect that behavior. And likewise, you can just tell the people who are going to work in here that that's what happens. It's no harm for people to know how views work anyway, to be honest. But that's just something to note. But anyway, that's how we can automatically create the folders in here. Like I said, keep it, light in terms of folders. Don't get too nested with it. And in the example I said of why you might want to use folders in terms of permissions, you can always select the folder, go to the details, go to manage access. And that's where you can say, well, in terms of the groups of people who can access this, you can edit this or, put in named individuals. And that's how you can kind of make them more secure if you need to. And then the last thing is to stop people going bananas creating folders, because they see one folder and then they want to create about 1 billion of them. You can come up to new, you can go to edit new menu and just untick the folder, say save. And then when people are working here and they say new, they don't have the option to create a folder. So that's pretty nice. And it can help you keep this whole folder situation in a headlock. And of course, you can always order these A to Z. So we get our number 1 up the top. And like with all folders, you can always go in and change the color if you want. If you want to get a bit fancy, you have that option there for you as well. And so there you go. That's your folders. So now let's move on to feature number 4, which is getting a cascading metadata effect. So what I mean by that is if we have a look here at our demo site, we can see we have a risk project log. Okay, now I have a phase and then I have a selection of document types depending on the phase. Okay, so if I come in here and I can click the 3 dots here and I might go down to more and properties, I see here's all the metadata in here. And you can see specifically I've set the phase for delivery and I see delivery document type. Okay, but I'm not seeing the planning or the closure document types. But if I change this to planning, you see now I see the planning document type and I don't see the delivery. Likewise, if I change this to closure, I see the closure document types and neither of the other 2 phase document types. So that's a way we can get this cascading effect in here. And it's quite simple to do, but again, it's one of those features that not a lot of people know is available to them. And essentially, it's anything we can do to make the metadata experience easier for people, we want to do that, okay? So how do we do it? If we come back over to our project site, what we can do, we can navigate into where we have a document, okay? Because this is where we want to apply it. So basically, I'll come in here, like I did before, 3 dots, come down to more, go to properties, and right up in the top, we have this option to basically edit the form. So if I drop that down and I say edit columns, I can see here that these are all of the metadata columns that are displayed in here. And basically what I want to do is I want to say for planning, only show it if doc phase is equal to planning. So it's a little conditional formula that we add. And the way you do that is I come in here to doc type planning. I can hit the 3 dots and I can say edit a conditional formula. And this is where we pop in that formula. And it's a very simple formula. All we're saying is equals, and we say if, put in the brackets, and then we want to put in the column name with the $sign. So we'll say if doc phase, and then we'll space and we'll say equals equals. So if doc phase is equal to, and we'll say planning, we'll put in a comma and we'll say true, otherwise false. And then we'll close the bracket. And that's our formula in there. So again, all we're saying is if the document phase column is equal to planning, show the doc type planning, okay? And if not, don't. We say save, we have that in there like that. And then we repeat it for in here. So what I'll just do is I will copy this formula because it's going to be pretty much the same. So now I'll come into delivery, edit conditional formula, pop it in here. So now I'm saying if the doc phase is equal to delivery, show this column. We'll say save, and exact same for closure. We'll say save. And you can see these columns are grayed out. That shows that we have the conditional formula applied. So we have that in there and we click save. So we can see it working in here. The doc phase is planning. So we're shown the planning. We can change this to delivery, and now we see delivery and the different types of documents we have in there. And so simple as that. It's a nice way to do it and kind of helps people not see, irrelevant metadata fields, because there's nothing worse than, having to fill in metadata and you see about 50 fields and, only 10 of them might be relevant to you. So that's a way we can do it. Now, just in terms of cleaning up our metadata, I probably should have done it sooner, to be honest, is we can always rename these columns that are a bit more easier to see. So in here, I'm going to go to column settings, edit, and I'll just put in my space in here, assign to, and I'll click save. Similar here with status, I go to edit and I'll just probably call it status rather than doc status. Again, come in here, I'll go to edit, I'm going to change it just to due date. So sometimes I put doc due date in here or doc status in here because there's already a system column with the name status. So it won't let me create the column with that name, but I can always come back in and edit the name, and that's fine. So in here, I'm going to go to column settings, edit, change this one to phase. And again, put in descriptions here if you want it, just to help people understand what these things are. Come in here, column settings, edit, and I might totally change this. Planning doc type. And I'll say save. I'm going to change this one to delivery doc type. And you can just bring your columns out so that you can see the full word. So yeah, anyway, you just do that and tidy things up as best you can. And just note that if you do update your column labels, you might have to reapply that conditional formatting again. So just something to watch out for. If you find that you've changed the names, they don't work, you'll have to go back in and change them again. You'll still have to use the original column name for it. And if for some reason you can't remember what that name was, you can always come up here to the cog, go to library settings, more library settings, and we can see in here we have phase. If I click onto that and you want to know what the actual column name is, you can always go into the address bar on your browser, go right to the right hand side, and you'll see the last part of the URL will actually be the internal name of the column, which is doc phase, our original name. So you just use that. So one other thing you might do just to clean it up for, we have delivery doc type in here because we're in delivery. But these two options are blank. Now, unfortunately, I don't know of any way that we can hide a column based on the value of another column. If anybody else knows, please comment down below and I'll buy you a pint for sure. But if we want to just show that this is not missing metadata, it's just not applicable, we could always come in here, column settings, edit. We could add in another choice, which is not applicable. And we might style it something very kind of in the background, something like that. And we could set the default value to not applicable. So not a crucial detail, just something if you want to, just to tidy things up a little bit. So I'll set this down to not applicable. But like I said, if anyone knows a way to hide these, if we don't need them, that would be great to see. But anyway, that's how you can do some cool things with cascading metadata through our conditional formatting and just tidying things up in general in terms of the metadata. Again, not a lot of people know that exists, but it's certainly handy, especially if you're coming down to, picking addresses and geographies based on region and then towns and cities within it. That can be super useful to have. So on to the next one. And so moving on to our fifth and final feature, it's all about creating a targeted user experience within here and helping people find the files that they're assigned to, okay? So scenario in this case would be, say you are a key member of many projects and you want to see, well, what are the files that are assigned to me that I need to work with and what's actually going to be due first? What do I need to prioritize? I mean, you can always come into each project and then filter by assigned to me if there's lots of documents. But if you really want to take the structure out of it and just see the documents across any project that's been assigned to you, well, we can create a view to do that. So what we want to do is first we have to create a new view, and then we have to tell SharePoint, ignore the document set structure in here. I just want to see a flat structure of every document that's in this library, but then filter it only to the ones where I have been assigned the document to work on. So that's what we'll do now. So what we do is we come up here and we say create a new view, and we can say assigned to me. And then this will be, specific to any person who views this to them, okay? So we'll do that and we'll say, okay, create it. So now we have this assigned to me view. So we want to make a couple of changes in here, but what we have to do is we have to select the view and come down to edit current view. So the first thing what we want to do in here was, well, we want to say, when I'm in this view, what are the metadata columns I want to see? Because I might want to filter on specific pieces of metadata. So I can come in here. I don't need the project status, the project start date, or the project manager. I might keep the client in here because remember, we told the document set to include the client in the documents that get stored in it. So we'll keep that. I'll come in and I'll select the due date. I'll include the phase, the planning document type, the delivery document type, and the closure document type. And we might need something else, but that's okay for now. So we do that. So that's going to tell us what we want to see in the view. And now we want to filter things, okay? So basically we're going to say only show me items when the assigned to, and this is where we put in the secret sauce. We'll put in 2 square brackets and we'll type in me. So that's going to say only show me documents where I am the assignee. So we put that in there like that. And we can also target it to a content type. So I'll say the content type is project document. So that's going to make sure we just pull back project document files. And then we can come down here, and the next important piece we want in here is just come right down to where we have a folder section. And now we're going to say show all items without folders. So that's basically going to just disregard any folder or document set structure that we have. So we've done that. And then if we come back up here just to double check something, because I think I didn't do it, is if we come into our filter. So we have when content type is equal to project document. Okay. And we have or is assigned to me, but we want and, okay, because we want it to be a project document and assigned to me. So just make sure you keep an eye on that. And we do that and we click OK. We can see here that we see this document in here because it's been assigned to me, but we'd also see any other document in any other project that's been assigned to me. And then we can also sort it by newer to older, older to newer, depending on if you want to see what's, you know, overdue, I suppose, or what's, you know, nearest to today. So basically you can filter it by date if you want to. A little asterisk up here. So I'll just say save view, and that's all good. And then of course what we might do, this is all out of whack in here. So I'm going to say I want the name, I want the client, it's assigned to me, I want the phase to come next, and then I want to know whether it's a planning doc, what type it is, a delivery or a closure, the due date. We actually might bring that over here, and we'll bring status over here as well. So we totally changed it all up. But anyway, just order it whatever way you want it, basically is what I'm saying. So now, anyway, what do we have? We have a nice view which will look into every project and pull out every document that's been assigned to me and show it all in one place. So it's like your own dashboard of documents in here, which is really nice, I think. And it's super easy to set up. And then we can always go back to our A365 project view, look at all our projects, go into a project, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's how you're going to navigate it. So quite a simple feature, but having that way to target things to me and then be able to look inside all of these containers is really what the magic here that I'm trying to explain. And so there you have it. There are 5, you know, some lesser known features that SharePoint has around document management, which are super powerful. And they're the things that, you know, consultants use all the time. And so really, they're just more things to have in your toolbox when you're thinking about how do I want to manage the content and the files so that people can, you know, understand more about them and navigate them, you know, in an easier manner. I suppose the core foundation of all of this, which makes it work, is metadata. That is at the heart of all of this. And metadata is great because it, you know, it's going to help in search. It can help you create all these different views, and it can just provide that overarching information about what it is you're about to look at or about to get into. So I hope you didn't find that too boring. And more importantly, I hope you can see ways that you can use it yourself. If you did find it useful, a like and subscribe is always appreciated, but don't worry about it if you don't want it. No hassle either way. So until next time, see ya.